Welcome back to Britain's Hidden History. Me, Ross Brostock, live on a Sunday evening, 8 o'clock. Episode number 120. Wow. And they said it would never last. Take it away, Leon. Little introduction music. Evening all, evening all. Ian Briggs, evening all, back with the Chinese. I assume you mean a meal when you say that. Hello, Kenneth Mackay. Hello, Ross. Evening chat. Nicks a spring roll and runs off. Hello, hello, hello. Who is the rightful heir? Fake stone of destiny. Yeah, let's not get into that, eh? On this sensitive time with the country in mourning. I visited, right, Jojo, I'll just say a few hellos to people for logging in. So well done, Ian, for being first. You're the author, Ian Briggs. And then just give people a chance to log on, catch up. Oh, loads of people online. Excellent. So, right. I visited, right, Jojo says, I visited St. Illtyd Church in Llanedin, I think that should be. Maybe can you give me the email to forward videos and pictures, please? The place blew me away. The leper stone is beyond belief. There are two big stones outside as well. Llanryddian, that is Llanryddian. Right, oh, Jojo, Ross at cumberglyphics.com should get to me. Right, we got a lot on tonight. There's, wow, it's so much packed. And the main story, as you've seen from the caption, is this whole idea, and I'm reading from Wilson and Blackett as the primary source for this, although we will be looking at the Bible and Josephus and loads of other classical writers and things. And it's this idea that, thank you, Leon, he's gone. Not only was Peter not the first bishop of Rome, the contention is here that he never even went to Rome. Yeah, never even went to Rome. The whole thing seems to be a fabrication a couple of hundred years after the events. So we're going to go into a bit more about that because it ties in directly with British history and particularly Britain's hidden Christianity, which is what I'm more and more realising I should have called this book, Where Jesus is Buried. Britain's Hidden Christianity was the original title I had for it. And I thought we got a bit sensational because you can work out from this book where Jesus, well, maybe the son of Jesus, is buried in Wales. Aha. All right, so a bit more from that, okay? So the first pope was Welsh. Welsh, British, I'm not sure how you distinguish it in those days. Probably Cymru anyway. All right, loads of people online. Let's get cracking. Let's hello to a few people. Marshall Abrams. Marshall worked very hard on this book, helping me on the proofing and things. Hello, Marshall. Andrew Whelan. Heddiw pawb. That's peace, everyone. I went to Rome yesterday, but the farmer told me get off his land. Ha, ha, ha. That kind of Rome. Okay, the span looks fairly threatening. Half an afternoon in the vaults. Yes, don't cross Marshall. She's a moderator now, so she can plonk you with that big spanner. So remember, everyone, yeah, it's a family fun, right? It's a family friendly. Let's keep it all nice and, polite and language good, all that kind of thing. Nice, friendly evening. Right, more people comments. Let's have a look. Who else got? Chris Woods. Good to see you, Chris. Andrew Whelan. Gary Taylor. Hugh Evans. Paul Hart. Cloiso, all the way from California in America. Brilliant. Susanna Price. Right, the Great Griff. The Great Griff. Adam is on. Fantastic. Brad Kemble. Good to see it. Like the up reference. Well spotted. I was going to say, does anyone recognise the tune? And Brad is in there. Well done. All right, I'll tell you what, let's just dive straight in because there's loads of exciting and fun news this week. Just got to find the... Here we go. All right, hang on one second. Yeah, some really cool stuff. So, what's happened there? My graphics card may not be configured. Don't say that to me. I had a new graphics card a little while ago because we're having all sorts of problems. It's surprising how the costs build up doing this, and I don't know why the good old Windows didn't update. I don't know why they do those updates. We usually buy something that worked in the old days, but there we are. You keep doing the updates. And the last update doesn't agree with the graphics card. Got a new graphics card, computer guy put it in, and it still gets a bit wonky. So there we go. Right, so there's the headlines. Nice painting of Peter. Oh, holding the keys, you will notice. Now, number one, look at this. Check this out. If you look at the Light newspaper, or the Light paper as they call themselves, this is the new issue, hot off the presses. Came out, well, it's coming out now. You probably I haven't received my copies yet. I doubt you've received your copies yet. And if you look across the top, this is not a paid-for advert. This is a article an article which I was asked to do. Oh, hang on a second. I thought I was on the website. I can't scroll down, unfortunately. Hang on a second. Let's jump back to me. And I will show you the article, because I can get to the website. Yeah, I'm not supposed to leave that there. Got one of these things. Hang on. Let's start the show one of these. But, right, okay. Anyway, right, stick to the point, John. Stick to the point. Crack on with it. Right, so we've got the Light newspaper here. If you haven't seen it, it's called Uncensored Truth. It covers a lot of controversial issues, which I daren't go into here, but you get the idea, all about things that have been done. And it does tie in with our work, because as the saying goes, if you think a lot of the news is fake, you want to see what they've done with our history. So there you go. This is the article. It was on page 9. Great Fire of London was an inside job. And this is me taking some of the story from the book Architecture of Power by Rob Shaw, which are the great joy of editing and publishing. And I mentioned Robert in here. Yeah, you can see that, can't you? Hang on a second. Hang on. What's happened? It's not working? Have we got a bit of technical issues? I'll look at the comments in a second. Hopefully you can now see this. Angie's just come out to say, we can't see it. Anyway, here's the story. I'll have to describe it in case you can't see it yet. Great Fire of London was an inside job. That's the headline they've added to it. Fair play to their subby. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, they showed fine, yeah. Great Fire of London was an inside job, so the sub-editors put a good headline. It wasn't mine. There's the article I wrote, some stuff from Rob's book, and all about how the Great Fire of London was started deliberately. Well, so says the parliamentary inquiry of the time. Nothing to do with the baker, nothing to do with Pudding Lane. And isn't it weird how the very first story almost everyone gets taught in school turns out to not be true. Well, no one thought it was true at the time anyway. It's quite a recent invention. So it is available as a free PDF if you go to thelightpaper.co.uk, and you can get your own copy there, or buy copies, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and you can read this article and lots of the other fun stuff in there. So I was really pleased. Oh, I'll just mention on here, it says something about me as well, and it mentions this channel. So if you have seen this article and you have come here for the first time because you've seen a mention in the Light paper, fantastic. You are very welcome indeed. Very, very welcome. And I'll just do, because we've got new people joining all the time, which is great. I'll just say, what we're really doing, so many subjects, can't possibly go through them all. It's absolutely the range. It seems almost everything in history has been changed or corrupted, or the versions have been changed. It's, oh dear. What a strange old world we live in, eh? Where so what we're trying to do is go through and unpick the history and try and find out, when things were changed, why they were changed. Hang on a second, I'm still on the wrong page, aren't I? Come on, Ross. This should be the thing. Yeah, this is right. It just looks like it because it's lifted from the website, that's all. So you find that there used to be an accepted version of British history. Let's just go that far. And then it's been changed for political reasons over the centuries. Christianity, the big thing we're starting on tonight, starting in Britain rather than Rome, was fairly well known, and that was one of the first rewrites. That really upset the church, so that's been written out since very early times when the Roman Church has tried to establish itself. Some people even say that's why Claudius, one of the motivations for Claudius launching an invasion, if all that isn't fake history as well, was to crush this original form of Christianity. And then the history seems to have been copied and pasted back to try and make Rome primacy. So that's just one area. Then you've got the politics, which is very topical at the moment. Of course, we've just had a change of monarch in the UK. And if you look at the basis of their claim to the throne, shall we say, or how they arrived at the throne, how we have foreign, basically Germanic people sitting on the throne since the Glorious Revolution of 1688, and the old British kings, the Stuarts, were kicked out. And then you look at the Stuarts and their background, and you get all the way back and you find out who the true British royal families were. And the main thing is that we had this huge, huge, huge history, the best recorded history in Europe, and it's not allowed. So it got cancelled. as they use the modern term, where it got deleted or suppressed and replaced by that term, which thankfully is finally falling out of favour now, which is the Dark Ages. There is nothing dark at all about it. It is incredibly well recorded, but it wants to be kept in the dark because it's not the sort of thing they want you or I to read or be aware of. And I think it's a bit overreaction. I really don't think that for 1 second, I'm not, just to make it clear, I'm not a member of any political party or organisation or religious group, anything like that at all. I'm just interested in getting the truth out there. I'm interested in the history. The main writers we look at are Wilson and Blackett. I'm using their work quite a bit tonight. And you might also be coming on this channel now because you've seen the interview I did with Richard Hall, which was, yes, I went to see Richard Hall this week. Got a call, it was all very last minute. He had a slot, so we recorded. And I think Richard had a bit of a shock because he started asking me questions. There's so many books, so many areas. We started talking and it was like 3.5 hours later. So I don't know how much of that is going to stay in there. And we've also been out filming on location at various places that I talk about. So I don't know if it's going to be a Rich Planet 4-hour special or he's going to chop it out or what. But it was great. It's really exciting. And I had a tough few days. It's been really busy, which is great. That's what I want to do. We're going to grow this. It's the new term, the new academic year. This is going to be our breakout year. We've got a few months left to really make things happen, and I feel it's starting to happen. I feel that momentum. We're going to suddenly grow, because as I was saying with Richard, it's fantastic we passed 5,000 subscribers, but I know, followers, but I know when I tell Alan Wilson, he's going to say we should be on 50,000 by now, so hey, onwards and upwards. So anyway, join in. You'll find there's, by the time you're watching this, over 500 videos on this channel. There's a little search feature, put in wherever your topic is. Like tonight's thing, you can put St. Peter or Peter, that will find it for you. There might be places you want to go to, the First Church or Llandaff or Arthur, wherever your interest is, just whack it in and hopefully it'll come up. Right, okay, next thing. Just to give a special welcome to Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, who is on tour in the UK, and I'm going to be showing him around some of the early Christian sites where we think Christianity started, which is very much his sort of area. The publishing house is CIFA, and you can have a look on there. And this is the kind of lectures that Steve Pidgeon is famous for. Forbidden, I noticed this one is quite amusing because I was looking for a good picture of Stephen to put up tonight. And I came across this week's teaching, Forbidden Scriptures of the Apocryphal and Dead Sea Scrolls, which comes into this evening's show. So I thought, well, isn't that amazing? I searched for Stephen Pidgeon, and he comes up with part of the topics we're covering tonight. So he's this sort of, I'll try to get Stephen on to explain for himself, actually, because I'm going to be seeing him the next few days, helping show around to the sites. I'm just the guide and the driver, really. And I'd like to welcome, also, we've got one of the families staying with us for a few days. So that's all good. And really we share a common interest in origins of religion and history, rather than me being, a member of his faith group. I think you'd probably describe it. Okie dokie. So that's going to be an interesting few days. Always fun to meet him. He did come over a few years ago before all the COVID stuff, and there are some videos. So again, that's how you spell his name, Pidgeon with a D. If you put Pidgeon in, even Dr. P might come up. It should find the videos. Looking at places like Joseph of Arimathea's gravesite, which is in Cardiff, the world's first church, which you can go and see, Llanillid, the core, you can see that. Some of the world's first churches, first cathedral, loads of places like that. If you're into early Christianity, South Wales is the cradle of it, really. And parts of the west of England, that was the area that really kicked it off. Okay, and I'm going to mention this as well. So I'm just going to say another big thank you to Peter Smith, who's done huge amounts of work with the forum. I did briefly mention on this last week. If you're looking, this is the address at the bottom. Brit, you can only have so many letters on the title, so it can't be Britain's Hidden History. So it's brithiddenhistory.ports.net, okay? And you'll find loads of subjects. If you scroll down through there, you'll see, different, Arthurian history, astronomy, reading the stars, all the old things that we used to know and accepted history and known, and stuff that Wilson and Blackett have re-brought out. As I say, we had history clinging by its fingernails on the edge of the cliff, and they pulled it back up. But they're getting old now. Alan's 90, and they can't be doing this anymore. We have to take it on. I mean, more and more people involved. And it's good that this is happening, and more people are. Because if we let go now, it's going to fall straight back off that cliff again. And our descendants will not have another chance to find this. It's getting more and more difficult all the time. Sites are getting ploughed over or destroyed, built on. It's just so the physical evidence is more difficult to get to. Even I notice when I edit old Wilson and Blackett books from the 80s and look at the photographs, how dramatically different a lot of the places are. And how a lot of things you could have seen previously, you just can't see at all anymore. So, and it's just going to get worse and worse. There's a massive housing building project going on. There's also these wind farms and solar farms and all this. The sites are going to go. So you need to get onto it now. Get yourself physical copies in case the internet disappears or something. So you've got your own records. Going to put together some guidebooks, things like that to help people get around, okay? Right. Oh, yeah. Now, this week, I don't know, I was a bit disappointed. I was expecting to see more viewers. Maybe I should have made it a bit clearer. If you go to the website, hang on a second. I did have this queued up. What have I done with it? Yep, here we are. So this is the site you're on now. you should recognise this. Britain's Hidden History Ross, 5,000 subscribers. Yay, brilliant. This is what we're watching now. It says upcoming because I put this up earlier. And these are unpublished works of Wilson and Blackett, okay? I'm reading from unpublished works. And there hasn't got any fancy kind of front page like that. It's just straight in, me reading some of the text and adding a little bit of colour to it. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, yeah, great. Right. Okay, so look what else we got there. Right. Oh yeah, here's an interesting website. A bit worried, we got so much on tonight's show. I don't think I'm going to get a chance to get to it. But I think I'll come back to this, maybe do a separate video. You can't quite see under there, but if you look, it's called earlybritishkingdoms.com. I've tried reaching out to this person who runs the page, runs the site. Sorry, just trying to remember the name off the top of my head. David.h.nash. David.h.nash Ford. I love the site. He even mentions, you see, Wilson and Blackett here. He's not such a fan as we might be. He makes quite a bit of criticism, and that's fine. All right, we're here to research and discuss ideas. And funny enough, I think I found a bit of an error in this book tonight, which is I've put a little correction on there, which myself proofed that, so I have to take responsibility for that one. It's not a huge thing. The overall picture stays the same. There's a little error in there, which I think anyway. Although I have to say, all the previous times, not just 99%, all the previous times, I've found something I'm not sure about from Alan Wilson, and I can't find it. I think, it looks like a mistake. Eventually it turns up, so maybe you can help me on that one. Okay. So it actually mentions Arthur's stone, look. One of the things we look at is who were the King Arthurs, plural, more than one, 2 King Arthurs. So you got the famous one with the round table, all that kind of stuff. He's from the 560s. He lived from, the 6th century, I should say. And the episodes went up to about 579 when he seems to have died round about that time. But he was not over 200 years old. He did not fight the Romans. He was not part of the campaign of the 380s. That was clearly a different character. And there's a big controversy over whether or not he's called Arthur or not. To my mind, it doesn't really matter. Whether he's Anun or Amun, Arnun, Andragathius, or there's a few more names up the top there, Anthun. It's almost irrelevant. What is most important, in my view, is you can clearly see 2 stories have been welded together to make one. And this goes back to Griffith of Ap Arthur, known as Geoffrey of Monmouth, right? Because Welsh name is not allowed on history books. Right, so here we go. And he's fair play. It's quite a good little summary here. So I'll just read this little bit. There's loads and loads and loads on this website. I highly recommend it. And if anyone can get in touch with David Ford, please, I'd love to have a chat with him, do an interview or something, promote his website. But I notice there's nothing up there on this website for well over 10 years. So I hope everything's still going, or if he's just dropped it or something like that. I'm actually going to read this page because it's pretty good. Right, so the tradition, Geoffrey of Monmouth, or Griffith ap Arthur, who was a South Walian person, and other medieval Arthurian writers tell us that Arthur was taken to the Isle of Avalon to be healed of his wounds after the Battle of Camlan. Later tradition assumed that he died and was buried there, and identified the place as Glastonbury in Somerset. Right, which is the hoax we talk about sometimes. It's not Glastonbury at all. The place was Glasdenic, it just happens to sound like it, and that was a scam to pay for the new roof, and they're still taking the money off people. Brilliant. Must be the best scam ever. How old is it going to be? 800-900 years it's been running? It's been debunked hundreds of years ago. Even at the time, people realised it was a scam, and it's still running. Anyway, here we go. So Blackett and Wilson claim that one of the two figures who went to make up King Arthur is to be identified with the Emperor Magnus Maximus' son, Anun of South Wales. That's not actually quite what Wilson and Blackett say at all. But sorry, I shouldn't say it at all. It sounds rude. I'm not trying to have a go at this piece at all. This is actually Guy of Warwickshire, is how he becomes remembered in folklore. And he's from Warwickshire, not South Wales, okay? This man, who occasionally may have spelt his name Arthun, they identify with both the real King Arthur and the classical Androgathius, who fought for Maximus during his continental campaigns. In searching for his burial place, Blackett and Wilson claim that the original Glasdennan of Arthurian legend became confused with Glastonbury in Somerset. Its original location was at an ancient cemetery called the Old Bury. So he's buried at Old Bury, near Arthur's Stone, where Arthur's Stone is. It does kind of make a bit of sense, and as he says here, in Warwickshire. The village of Glascote stands nearby. They cite the Harleian MS3859, pedigree number 25, as proof. By interpreting its last passage, Funt Glasdenici unerant Lloyd Coit, that's the key bit there, Lloyd Coit, as mean that the people of Glasdennan lived at a place called Caer Lut Coit, which is nearby Wall, which seems to be the ancient capital of, what do you call it, England, Britain? That central England area anyway, was Wall, and that's where the roads were long before the Romans, if the Romans came here at all. That's where the roads go, that's why it's the capital. So Blackett and Wilson believe that the Warwickshire Arthurian tradition, oh here we go, they have mentioned it, sorry, became absorbed into the tales of the local hero, Guy of Warwick. Final proof came with their apparent discovery of an ancient sub-Roman, I hate that term, sub-Roman. Do we call India sub-Raj? Because the Raj was there for a while, good 400 years, or 200 years, say 300. I don't think we call India sub-British or sub-English or something, do we? Anyway, sub-Roman memorial stone at Old Bury, bearing the partial inscription Arturius in Iacti Maci, which possibly is Arturius here, son of Maximus. Could Arthurstone have taken its name from this very monument? And then we have discussion about this. I'll try and skip through too much of it. But the appearance of Arthurian themes in the tales of Guy of Warwick were first recognised by Edward Lloyd. It's him again. He comes up all the time with this, back in the early 18th century. And the idea of an amalgam of such stories in the Midlands is not without merit. That's very kind of you, David. Key to Blackett and Wilson's argument, however, is their interpretation of the Harleian MS3859 passage concerning Glasdennan. Unfortunately, the usual translation indicates that the people of Caer Lut Coit Wall relocated themselves to Somerset levels, and this is backed up by old Glastonbury legends about the town's founder Glast, who can be found in North Welsh border pedigrees. There therefore seems little reason to search for an alternative Glastonbury. The problem is the events he's talking about and the founding of the small church, which is actually a sort of requiem church for the death of, I think it was Egbert, I think I got the right king there, was built for him in the 980s, I think, in the 10th century anyway, which is 400 odd years after the second Arthur died. And what would that be? Almost 700 years after the first Arthur died. So, yeah, they may well have resettled in Glastonbury in the Somerset levels, but it's a long, long, long time after the Arthurs, okay? So the Arthur Stone is still to be examined by recognised academic authorities, not through lack of trying, although it is now in America. And I can't say too much about it for various reasons, but please, we really would like that stone back. It's supposed to be on loan, and it needs returning. Blackett and Wilson are actively seeking an independent scholar to undertake such a task. They did for a long, long time, and amazing that you can't get academics to do it, even if you can find an independent one. The results of which are eagerly awaited by the Arthurian research community. And I tell you what, this site is great. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff. And I wish the very best to David Ford. I hope he's alive and well, and he's up for a chat and interview. So please, if you know him or he's watching, please get in touch. Right, Mandy McCourt also found this. The Museum of Wales. Oh, yeah. I'd forgotten about this. Yes, thank you, Mandy. Mandy's one of our regular contributors, brilliant researcher. She's been busy with family stuff lately. Ooh, hang on. I need to be able to just... I have to show you this. This is great, especially if you're new, all right? Especially if you're new to all this. Because you're probably used to the idea that if you go to, I don't know, I mentioned India again, but, you know, the Indian museums and Indian history books, they try and make everything Indian. You go to China, everything's Chinese. You know, India invented the number 0, and China invented everything. You know, gunpowder, paper. Every country in the world generally tries to promote itself, apart from Britain and particularly Wales. And a great example here, because this is the National Museum of Wales. So who was King Arthur? King Arthur has a strong link to Wales. Yeah, you think. But how much is known of the man and his times? Because the Arthur II was king of Glamorgan and Gwent. He was not High King of the whole of Britain. The concept of Arthur being king of all of Britain was brought in again for political reasons. And Richard I, or even earlier, because he was claiming to have the succession to Arthur. And if Arthur ruled all of Britain, he should rule all of Britain. Situation was very different. There were loads of kings, no principalities, none of that. Don't like that word. If anything, the word principality, to describe Wales, probably comes from the Latin principe, which is the first. So the first king, or the high king, the first amongst kings, rather than it being run by a prince. Okay, the idea of a prince running things is bizarre when you think about it. So what you had, all these kings around Britain, when it came to a time of crisis, like an invasion or a war, they would elect a high king. And they would call that high king the Pendragon, or the Uther Pendragon, in charge of the whole thing. And Uther Pendragon, which means Uther is like terrible, not as in my handwriting or my singing, terrible as in really scary, that kind of awesome, terrible. And Pen is head, and dragon does not mean dragon with the fiery and the wings and all that. Dragon means general. So the head general, he's the terrible head general, the frightening one. So that's the Arthur Pendragon. All right, so we got here. So anyway, King Arthur has evolved into a legend. It's true. Started off as history, became legend. Tales and romances celebrated the king and his court in the imaginative literature of Europe. Did Arthur really exist? What was he like? To find answers, it's necessary to look at two equally important sources of information: historical text and archaeology. Well, I sort of agree with that. So when did Arthur live? The first mention is thought to be in a reference in the poem of Gododin, the earliest known work of literature in Welsh. The poem's from the 6th century. I mean, it's remarkable, you know, they're so old, these documents, there's so much of them. To say there's no written history is just ridiculous. Anyway, so when much of Western Britain, Wales, Northern England and Southern Scotland spoke Welsh, Cymraeg. The earliest surviving written form of the poem dates to the 13th century, which might sound a long time ago, but when I say to you that the earliest reference for Julius Caesar's work is 16th century, with nothing apparently earlier at all, if you think this is suspicious, it's only, 700 years old, and it's writing about events 600-700 years after the events. Things like Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars as relating events at 1,500 years after the event. So let's, apply some level playing fields here. Are you watching the comments as well, Lillian? I'll come and look at the comments, answer some questions. If you've got any questions, fire away. Love questions. Right, so the reference to Arthur in this source may be no earlier than the 9th century. Is that all? But it demonstrates the fame of Arthur among the Welsh at this time. 9th century is important because that means it's pre-Norman. So you can't say the story came with the Normans to Wales if they're writing about in the 9th century before they got here, can they? How does that work? The most important of the historical texts is the Historia Britanniae, History of the Britons, which gives the earliest written record of Arthur, who fought against them, the Saxons, the Sais, with the king of the Britons, but he himself was the leader, Duke of Battles, you see? With the king of the Britons. But he himself was the leader of battles, winning 12 battles, as I was explaining. At the time, his father, Myrig, was still alive and still the High King in Glamorgan and Gwent. They had this handover system. You didn't wait until you got so old and croaky you couldn't do anything. You would hand over the rough stuff. Myrig seems to have been injured, a badly damaged leg, which is why he couldn't do the active stuff. So this is why Arthur had to take over at such a young age the military duties, and they're going around the country keeping an eye on things. Perfect setup for a young man. He's young, vigorous, up for fighting and doing all those kind of things. And the old man stays at home making sure the accounts are correct and deals with the squabbles and all those constant disputes over land and all the other things people fall out about. Right, so the Annales Cambrian, or the Welsh Annals, probably compiled in the mid-10th century, again, very ancient. Record the date of one battle, the Battle of Baden. This date, let's not go into Baden dates now because these dates are all wrong, but we can do that another time. This suggests that Arthur was indeed an historical figure. He probably lived in the 6th century. People are coming around. It's like, hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got to show Alan Wilson this. He's banging on about this for 40 years. And finally, we do feel as though on the right side of the curve, or the tide. The tide's coming in. A lot of the old nonsense is being swept away. And we're on this side of the tide, okay? So this is good news. There's a book for Nyrin. Where's Arthur buried? Ha 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 ha. Right. There's various portrayals. And you've got the greatest of the Welsh Arthurian prose tales, Culhwch ac Olwen. And you've got all this kind of stuff. You go through all that. Archaeology. And this is where it starts to get a bit weird. Right. The second source of information. So anyway, so we've got written evidence for these places and where it could possibly be. Okay, Leon's important. They haven't actually mentioned where the places where he's most likely buried. How weird is that? Because that'll be up by St. Peter's Church near Bridgend. That's not even mentioned as a possibility. Isn't it weird? And yet it fits perfectly with the descriptions in these places. South Cadbury we've talked about before. We'll probably talk about again. This idea was also brought together in the 1540s by Leyland. So this is a bit of a folk fix. Tintagel, the original, is Din Dagol, which means dual-ringed hill fort. It's not the place. Tintagel's a Norman castle. There was something there earlier, and it is part of the story. Cornwall is important, but not the edifice you see there, which was built at least 500 years after Arthur. Anyway, so archaeology. Okay, right, so archaeological evidence of contact between Wales, Cornwall and the Saxon world takes many forms. From metalwork manufactured in an Anglo-Saxon style, discovered in southeast Wales. So if you find the same thing in two places, why is it not Welsh style found in Anglo-Saxon rather than Anglo-Saxon style found in Wales? Anyway, I shouldn't get into that kind of thing. Excavations at Dinus Powys, again, one of these places. I've asked so many people from Dinus Powys now, why is it called Dinus Powys? And everyone gets it wrong. So think Dinas, which is town in Welsh, and Powys is the county of Powys. Don't realise this is a corruption. It should be Denise. And Denise was from Powys, and she married Iestyn, the last king of Wales. Glamorgan and Gwent, I should say. So it's Denise. Denise from Powys. Right, so excavations at Dinus Powys, they won't get that in the official documents. A princely hill fort near Cardiff occupied between the 5th and 7th centuries. And later, anyway, has informed us about the nature of a high-status site in South Wales at this time. Dinus Powys, because of the person, we know the dates. And if you look up Denise, she's much later, 10th century. So this is incorrect as well. But hey, all of it's incorrect. It's not contemporary with these. That was created 15th century. Tintagel is Norman. This is National Museum of Wales, right? It's got pieces of glass and other bits and bobs, okay? Roman amphitheatre, which has always been known as the site of King Arthur's court since the 12th century. But once the dig was underway, they got the funding. This has become only by guesswork or deduction. They now call this a Roman amphitheatre. There's nothing there to say it's Roman, even that. Then we got this thing then. 1405, French army landed in Milford Haven to support Owain Glyndŵr in his uprising against the English crown, reached Caerleon in South Wales. Yeah, he was also smashing up South Wales as well. It does make me laugh. One of the biggest pubs in the centre of Cardiff is the Owain Glyndŵr. And I always tell people, the last time Owain Glyndŵr visited Cardiff was not for a pint, he came to burn the place down. Right, you hear they visited King Arthur's Round Table. Right, now according to a French source, the Round Table is in fact the Roman amphitheatre, the legendary fortress of Isca. In fact, why is it in fact then? Why isn't it in fact that all the old sources always said it was Arthur's Round Table? It's the place you would meet, and all the people could sit on the sides watching, and they could have meetings. But we've decided it's Roman, all right? So that's the end of it. Geoffrey of Monmouth said it was the court of King Arthur. So you got all these kind of things. Close to the area of his upbringing has been described as the fruits of a lively historical imagination. There you go. Maybe they're right, maybe it isn't. But there's no evidence to show the other way. Chechen de Troy is important. They all... It's popular in lots of writings. It's in loads of historical documents, but it can't be there, okay? It's got to be Roman. That's the rules. Arthur's Stone, all these other places. So it never actually says, Arthur's in Wales, but there you go. All right, so this is the official thing. Right, okay, so let's try and get back to our main thing. Hang on a second. Oh, it's loads tonight. I have to speed up, Rossi B. Because we want to see the... Right, okay. Oh, yeah, just an update on Fort in the Wood. If you haven't been following this, please have a search for it. Fort in the Wood is a website. There's a Facebook page. It's classic. I'm not going to go through it all again tonight. But basically, found some stones in the ground and declared it a Roman fort. Even though there's no record of any Roman fort in the area, the reaction is, rather than thinking, hey, maybe it's British, they are going to rewrite Roman history. Again, go and have a look at the website. Check it out. Please, if anyone's a volunteer on the dig, please send me an email, let me know what happened. Because all I'm asking for, if you go on the English Heritage site, they do claim to have found some pottery. I imagine scraps of pottery, bits of pottery, but anyway, they claim that. And this can be identified as Roman, which confirms their earlier, conviction, I would call it, that it was Roman. They didn't even have any doubt. The guy actually says it's 100% Roman. 100%. I don't know how anything could be 100% for this period. So I'm trying to get the pictures, because apparently the first crockery was found in 2013. That's 9 years ago. So I was told, pay to become a member, which costs £12 a year. I don't mind doing that. Will I have the photographs? No, it will be in the report, which is still not out. So it's a frustrating business. I don't know how they get away with it, really. English Heritage recognise it. It's all referenced. And if you go to English Heritage, all you see is their website cut and paste. There's no proof of this. So what is going on, folks? What is going on? Why is it that British history is just not allowed? Okay. All right, we're going to the main bit. But first of all, I'm going to have a little slight break. Now, what I was going to do here... No, I won't do this. Actually, I'm not set up for it. I was going to play my guitar and sing a song. Now, I used to have breaks. Remember about a year ago we used to do this? It's all got a bit more serious more recently, hasn't it? My guitar's right there. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Don't encourage me. It's only since I stopped singing the numbers started going up. Right, okay, so, oh wow, we got loads of people online at the moment. Fantastic. Right, let me just check on the messages. What else we got there? Good evening all. Charles, defender of faith, not their faith. Yes, that's going to be very interesting, isn't it? When Charles does his vows. I imagine the pomp and ceremony will be remarkably similar. I don't think they'll change that a lot. And I don't think they'll probably commission some new music. And you can guess what sort of musician they'll have writing that, what sort of composer. Will Charles say defender of the faith or defender of faith? I think the same thing, and it's incredibly relevant for tonight's discussion, which is all about the British original Christianity versus the sort of the Roman Church and that was forced on Britain and the resistance to that, and how the stories had to be changed. Right, Suzanne Price, Star Child Solaris. Oh, that's a great name, isn't it? I wish I was called Star Child Solaris. Good afternoon, Starseeds, Lightworkers and Truth Community. Humanity's hidden histories are buried in our DNA. King Arthur, way more important than anyone could imagine. All right, that sounds very interesting. Evening, the Great Griff. Good evening, good evening. Right, okay. Is any questions here? The tide has turned. Did anyone else see how sour Blair looked at that accession council meeting? All his plans in ruins. I'm interested to know what plans those were, Marshall. We'll have a chat sometime. Not on the channel here, though, okay? Get me thrown off. Chris Wood. I'm not coughing or a runny nose, but just seem to have a persistent headache and my body aches. I think she means... Hang on, okay. Right, Marshall. Right. Hugh Evans, glad to see you back well again. Everything's good. Bank bailings. Oh, my goodness. Everyone's getting to all those kind of topics. Just love to talk about and can't. In a terrible world, isn't it? In this free country of ours. I could say a couple of weeks ago who Jesus was, and he didn't die on the cross, and that's fine. Hopefully tonight's fine. But you call out some of these things, and that's it. Yeah, shout out to Richard Hall. Brought most people to the works of Wilson and Blackett. I can't emphasise this enough. I owe him so much. I told him this, that I wouldn't know about Wilson and Blackett if he hadn't put the videos on his channel. And he's on great form, by the way. There hasn't been much content because he's working on some huge projects which are taking all the time. And I think I was a break for him, really. It's like, he needs a change of break. Let me ramble on. Right, what we're up against. It needs to be 123,000 watching. Yes, thanks, Ron P. That's very good of you. Let's try and keep it going. Spread the word. Tell your friends. And don't forget, now we're getting more to normal. Videos most days, short ones. Johnny Big Spud. Can you one day find a story about Godovin? Aha, Godovin. Yes. Which, I would like to add, Alan Wilson... Godovin is known as the North. And everyone's trying to find out. Yes, the earliest story about wars with Anglo. And they lose and go on to... basically, I think what the point is making there, it's always shown as a great Welsh defeat. And I'm coming back to this in more detail. Actually, that might be a good one next week, do some more Arthurian stuff. Because what Wilson and Blackett do, they've translated the whole document again, and it's not even discussing a battle. There's been loads of Arthurian researchers trying to work out where Catreth is, which is mentioned as the site of this disaster. Catreth is not a place. What's being described with the Godovin is an event. It's a peace gathering. Everyone gets drunk, at which point treacherous Saxons get these hidden knives out and stab the Welsh nobility, or the British nobility. I prefer to think of the word British because it sounds a bit sort of modern nationalistic Wales. It's not meant to be about that. It's Britain, Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, all the histories. It just happens that Wales is where most of the records, where's the last place to fall. Let's just put it that way. Let's do this. So there, it's not a battle at all, and it's very interesting to get into it. Yeah, put questions in all caps to make it easier for us to see them. Yeah, do that. Put any in capitals. I won't think you're shouting at me. Is Adhur a gardener, David Church says. I don't know. I've looked that up. I don't actually speak Welsh. I'm learning. Right, one of my goddaughters went to uni in Edinburgh this week. Well, congratulations, Pushkin Castle. Thanks for sharing that with us. And there's my favourite name in the world, Achmasei Brandnolorlan. Is that your real name, or is that a made-up name? I've got to know. I want to know. Achmasei. Regular contributor. Callanish and update. Okay, right. Let's get back to the thing. Richard. Yay. Good to hear from you, Richard. Good to see you. Rachel, all the family. Morgan. Don't stay up too late. I get... Alan Rees. Sorry, I got to read this one out. I got excited when I thought it was Welsh pottery. No Welsh pottery has ever been found. No. It's the only country on the planet. A bit like the English. English and Welsh were incapable of building castles, walls, roads, making pottery. The only people in the whole world incapable of these things. Everything's foreign. Right, okay, got to jump forward a bit now. Gosh, loads of comments. Great to see it. I want to say, David Church, I already have my King's Coronation book for pianoforte, God Save the King, Lejeune's Coronation March, Handel's King Shall Rejoice, Lohengrin's Wedding March, Beethoven's Vittoria, Rule Britannia. Oh, there you go. Right, okay, let's get back onto the main subject now. Bum, bum, bum. Oh yeah, I was going to try and do a little bit clever with the layout on this. Hang on a second. Because I need to flip back and forth between the presentation. I'm going to put the PDF up. Oh, I meant to make it available. If you're watching live, come back tomorrow, Monday. It will be up. This chapter from the book will be available as a download from the usual spot. So I'm going to try and do... is this going to work? I think this is going to work. Yeah, Richard Hall. It was so funny talking to Richard because he's... like the screens look a bit weird now. Because what I've got is my presentation notes on the right. And we can actually have the chapter from the book on the left. So let me jump in back and forth and turn the screen. Because this is all live. None of this is edited. And it's quite funny watching Richard setting it up. He's so meticulous. You know, he's a real engineer. You know, all the cameras and the light settings and continuity. And you know, when we're outside, you know, getting the shots set up. I mean, his stuff is like a different class. So I don't claim to be a filmmaker. I'm just a reporter. Okay, I think of myself more as a reporter than anything else. And I just try and get the information across and try and make it a little bit interesting and visually interesting. But I think Richard probably does about 10, 11 films a year. And we try and do like, you know, one of these a week and a few more during the week. It's just a different game. It really is good. Okay, so here we go. This is chapter 8 from the book. I'm not going to just read the book. And I'd like you to buy a copy. I did expect to sell a lot more of these with that. I think I made a mistake there, really, because a real sort of clickbait shock headline where Jesus is buried. Although it does show you where Jesus is buried. But hey, I think where Britain's hidden Christianity might have been better. It's too much for people to swallow in one go. That's the problem with a lot of this. If you are new, don't feel overwhelmed, all right? Don't feel like, wow, we all feel like that at first. With Wilson and Blackett's work, I would say most of their books I've now read 8 or 9 times at least. It's a huge download that also involves pushing out a lot we already think is correct, you know. So don't panic if you're not keeping up. Don't panic if you can't remember all of this. Watch it again, or just let it mull over in your brain a bit and do it in chunks, you know. I have to charge through because even at the rate we're doing things, it's going to take about 20 years to cover all their work, okay? Right, so let's jump into this now. How do I jump between the two screens? Yay, I can do this. I got that typo, screen 1. Ugh. I can't just sit there looking at that. Hang on. Yeah, I'll see. That would never happen with Richard Hall. I can tell you that right away. Right. So we got Augustine Austin of Canterbury, incredibly famous. One of my best friends, Philip Warner Smith, if you're watching, Philip, or Phil, I've always called him Phil, F-I-L. He went to Canterbury Cathedral School, which is supposed to be founded by Augustine, which would make it the oldest school in the world by a long way. Although there's no documentation for the school existing before the 16th century. But hey, why let the facts get in the way of a good story? And Philip, I always had some pictures of him as altar boy with his frilly collar and the cross and all that kind of thing. So there we go. So he couldn't be more on the Anglican side of this. He could the altar boy at Canterbury Cathedral School, and we're best mates. So don't fall out over these things, all right? I'm gonna, dislike people who have different views. Not that I think Phil was that bothered anyway, but there we go. By the time I caught up with him, Phil gave us a bell. Right. This background's pretty important. So if you're not aware of it, you can read this as well. Augustine. Right. Okay. Let's set some background for this. The sort of in the 400s, 500s, you start to get more and more arrivals of Germanic tribes coming across to Britain for various reasons. I'm going to all of it right now. Then we had the major comet 562, roughly, maybe a little bit earlier, but it seems to be up 562. Wilson and Blackett, I go with their version of events. A lot of people think it was 535. Doesn't make a huge difference in the greater scheme of things. This devastated the country. The biggest event in British history. Hang on a second. The biggest event in British history, and it's completely written out and ignored. This terrible cataclysm came through, destroyed all their plants, the animals, made the country unlivable. And this is where you get a lot of the Arthurian stories, because Arthur and his court had to go to Amorica, i.e. the Brittany area. The area, funny enough, conquered 6 generations previously with his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather in the invasion of Western Europe in the 380s. So that's why it's Brittany. Britons took it. And the language is Breton, which is remarkably close to Old British or Welsh, or used to be. Unfortunately, Breton's being changed and Cymraeg's being changed, and they are less similar now than they used to be. But they certainly did used to be very similar. And Alan Wilson tells stories when Johnny Onion used to come round the streets of Cardiff selling their onions from France or from Brittany, and they could talk easily enough. So when they came over, this was seen as an opportunity then by the church in Rome to push their version of Christianity. This had already been successfully carried out in Gaul, where Clovis had been sort of offered the land. If he could beat the British style, or what you might call the Gnostics, that style of Christian, in France, and kick them out, he could keep the land. And that's how the whole thing started, the whole Franks and all that kind of thing. All starts back then. This was it's kind of a religious war. It's using religion for politics anyway, let's put it that way. So that was driven out. And the remarkable thing is how Christianity had already spread all across Britain and Western Europe before the Roman Church started pushing it back the other way. So Augustine, round about 597, is sent in on the back of the Anglo-Saxons and the fighting that's now kicking off as the country repopulates. And they're going to use those as a spearhead to mortally wound the British Church. This battle still goes on. It's been a disaster for Western Britain because it's unacceptable to have this original form of Christianity, apostolic Christianity. And something to add here, which ties in with what Dr. Stephen Pidgeon does and the Nag Hammadi scrolls, which we'll come on to in a little bit later, is its fundamental changes. And this causes a problem for a lot of people. I've always been a Christian. I always went to church. This causes a problem because, and you can see more about this, I think it's 2 weeks ago, if after the crucifixion the Holy Family did come to Britain, with a living Jesus would seem to be the way, but if that's too much to handle, it's not as important as it may seem. Definitely with his wife, son, other family members brought the message to Britain, where they would have found their kindred spirits who come to Britain already at least 500 years earlier, as what they call the lost tribes. So this is why it has such a fertile ground. When the message of Jesus comes across, last year of Tiberius, so we're talking about 35, 37 AD, round about then, that's before the work of Paul and Peter and that really gets going. And this is the key point here. Because a lot of the New Testament and things like Acts, which are very precious to Christians, were written after this split has occurred. So you would suggest, assuming the Old Testament was written and is what it says it is, that would be shared book. And then you've got going off to Roman Christianity, which is where Paul is now creating a version of Christianity, with Peter part of that story. Or you've got the Apostolic Christianity, which is far more Gnostic. It's more about personal direct relationship with God. It doesn't have the idea of original sin, or you don't have to have a priest or religious leader intercede for you. It's a very, very different way of looking at everything. A reincarnation, a big part of it. As Michelle Evans pointed out on her channel, have a look, Poppity Ping, that's right, let's get it right, Poppity Ping, one of the Welsh slangs for microwave. It could be more than coincidence that Buddha means good life in Welsh, Bwydda, good life. So we're talking a very ancient message. And I don't think anyone would really argue with the Christian message of, treat others as you'd be treated yourself, the golden rule, and love other people, that kind of thing. I don't think people have a problem with that. The controversy comes in, obviously, when the structures come in and the hierarchies and the rules, and they're made to feel guilt, and the tithes and all these sort of control mechanisms. That's the sort of, you would argue, if you're following this line of logic, all that came after British Christianity has already started and flourished and spread across Gaul, Western Europe. So it's a critical time. what they use, the term they love to use on the news is an existential threat. This existential threat. If you're trying to build this religion that's going to take over the world, you can't have the original version there. You have to suppress and delete that to give your own chance to prosper. And what you then have to do, and what this is very much about this evening, is you have to create a backstory to show you came first and you've got the rights to be this church and you are the number one. You've got Peter. He's the one with the keys to heaven. He's in the Bible. You are the rock on which I'll build my church. You've got Paul setting himself up as the major person, writing the rules, telling how it's going to work. And this is going to be the version of Christianity. And that's the thing which has been come in. And this is what the conflict has been about. And if you look even at the time of Henry VIII, when we had the start of what's called the Protestant faith, actually, if you look back, that's not what Henry VIII called it. He called it the Reformation, the reforming of the original British church. They knew all about this stuff. Okay, one little bit of a side. Hang on, that's not an aside just yet. We'll come to that. All right, so let's put this back on. So we've got chapter 8, the myth of Peter in Rome. So now you know when I'm talking about Austin, or Augustine, he's more commonly known as. He landed in Kent, in the southeast of England, in AD 597, and he was looking to convert the Jutes and the Saxons. It's a political deal, all right? And he explains then why it was worth their while. One major weapon in Augustine's verbal armoury was the absurd claim by the Vatican, you like the way Alan Wilson writes, by the Vatican that Peter, rather than Linus, was the first bishop of Rome, and that Jesus the Nazarene had given Peter the keys to the gate of heaven. This is the crux of the Roman Church as opposed to the other ones. Alan's humour. No one knew where heaven was, or no, I should try and do a Cardiff accent. Or no one knew where the gateway was, and certainly no one had ever seen these keys. This went over well with the immigrants who are now being persuaded to adopt Roman Catholicism. Oh, that's nothing my Alan voice. I've changed the page by accident. Sorry. Anyway, this is the battle I just described, right? You can read it in more detail, make the download available. They even had a big synod at Whitby in 645, and this is the thing which really shows it. And what I'm going to do then, actually, I'm going to jump slightly, because, surprisingly, Wikipedia is quite good on this, but Wikipedia doesn't realise what it's saying, okay? I want to show a strange coincidence as well. Oop. Oh no, my computer's freezing. Oh, please don't. No, not now. No, you can't freeze now. Millions of people around the world watching. Yeah, I wish. Right, okay. So here we've got, this is Augustine of Canterbury. All right, you can read all the stuff he talked about and his background, how he came over 597, he's going to convert the Germanic tribes, blah, 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 background to the mission. That's their version of the map at the time. Look at this, is interesting, isn't it? See, there's the West Saxons, look. And there's the Wissey. Wissey becomes Wessex. They're not the same people. They're not the same people. Even on these maps. Why is it? I got to just there, so you can see it. This is Wissey, becomes Wessex, Wessex is not an abbreviation of West Saxon. So Wissey go way, 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 way back. And this area, so Gloucestershire, even down as far as Somerset, is really, really ancient British. These are nothing to do with the Germanic tribes. And there's it's called Barrow Tumps, where they do that dig there, what they call Anglo-Saxon burial mounds. And I've had so many discussions now with the organisers of the dig. Oh, that's better. Here we go, nice and big. And the experts and the archaeologists, I've had discussions with them. There is nothing at all there Germanic on the site that they've dug up. So what they say is there's no DNA. All they do is RDA, which I think is quite a clever one, where they look into the composition of the teeth, and from that you can work out what's been eaten, which seems the most credible of all the systems they run. And that shows that all the people they've discovered the bodies of were local. All the goods are local and probably produced locally, but they say it was culturally Anglo-Saxon. Culturally Anglo-Saxon. It's a very modern way of looking at history, whereby You don't have to worry about the facts or the evidence or anything. You can kind of impose a political view. I see where the history's going, rather sadly. So anyways, even on this map, you can see the Wissey. But so we look at this area, Kent. All right, this is where Canterbury is. Not sure exactly. It's around about there somewhere. Played cricket there a few times. Anyway, there's Kent. So this is the bit they would have landed in, and this is where the launch pad for this Roman Catholic invasion. Now, the other one we got here, this is just bonkers, this map. I just noticed. Middle angles and south angles. What are they doing there? East angles. Right, okay, angles would have come up here, and Bernicia is an angles term. Oh, right, this is all a mess, this map. Mercians, that's the one I should do. That's what I should do. Definitely do a full video on. Because I keep meaning to wait for the books to come out. There's so many books to edit and produce. Just going to do it. And please buy the book anyway, even when you've seen it all. What Wilson and Blackett show is the Vandals are the Mercians. Alright, they're a different group of people again. This is the launch pad for this invasion. This is where it is. And then we have the Synod of Whitby, which my geography is not great, but I think that would be about here, where they discuss what's going to happen with religions, and there's Britons, as they're called. Except, what they haven't put on here, 600. Oh, this is a terrible map. This area was called Elmet and was British up until the 10th century. South Yorkshire, Derbyshire, places like that. Elmet. Look up Elmet sometime. You might be surprised what you find. Yeah, this isn't why we're on this page. That's just Augustine. But anyway, in the book there's an error, so I should have picked up, where we put in the Synod of Trent. Well, there is a River Trent, which sort of runs through this kind of area. You've got Stoke-on-Trent, places like that. But no town of Trent, and no British Synod of Trent. I don't know how the mistake happened. There's a weird thing I just want to show you, because while I was... Funny things happen sometimes, don't they? You make mistakes. So when I was looking for the Synod of Trent, which I need to put on here. Oh, there's all the synods I could find. You can see we don't have one there. But if we go all the way up to... If we do look at Synod of Trent, it's remarkably similar to what was happening in both of them, even though there's 1,000 years between them. I'll try again, Ross. Council of Trent. Right, here we go. The Council of Trent. So this is 1,000 years later in Trent or Trento in northern Italy. All right. Now this is interesting because what they did there, they issued condemnations of the usual thing, what's considered to be a heresy, and committed by proponents of Protestantism. So again, it's this clash with the let's just call it the non-Roman versions of Christianity, because this isn't quite the same as original Christianity. But they're upset because they're trying to clarify what the church's doctrine, what the teachings, what the things original sin. There we are. Through the it's the Christian doctrine that holds that humans, through the fact of birth, so just by being alive, you've got no choice at all. You've got a tainted nature in need of regeneration and a proclivity to sinful conduct. Natural state is us all to be sinners and we need saving, okay? Sacraments, the Mass, all these kind of things. Yeah, so it's fascinating. It's a very similar sort of topics. But anyway, this is what we're looking at. The other quintessence I'm going to show is that there's more than one Augustine in history. And so I'm going a little bit deep. If it's your first show, just, make a cup of tea for the next 5 minutes or 2 minutes. Because this guy's also called Augustine. I was just looking for Augustine for some pictures and things like that. And he predates the Augustine who came to Britain, okay? But his story seems remarkably similar. This is another one of those weird things. Have different stories been glued onto each other or moved around? It's difficult to tell. But if you look at it, his thoughts profoundly influenced the medieval worldview. Many Protestants, especially Calvinists and Lutherans, consider him one of the theological fathers of the Protestant Reformation. His teachings on salvation and grace. So you got two Augustines, one on each side. How strange is that? Or was just me just wandering a bit too much? So the Council of Trent. Right, hang on, I was going to show you one more thing. This. Okay, let's just get back to... Pop this back up a second. Where are we? Augustine of Hippo, right. Right, okay, just quoting from the book now. Augustine failed to extend his authority to the Christians in Wales and Danonia to the west. Oh, sorry, this is from Wikipedia. That's why I put this on. That's right. Okay, Gregory's decreed that these Christians should submit to Augustine, that their bishops should obey him, apparently believing that more of the Roman governmental and ecclesiastical organisation survived in Britain than was actually the case. Watch how the history's being turned here. I don't say it's a conspiracy or anything like that, because the people writing these entries, I'm sure they're perfectly honest and doing what they're reading. It's not a question of that. The damage was done hundreds of years ago. And anyone reading the books since then have all followed the same path. So it's not a case of academics are all having quiet meetings to work out, what's going to be the agreed version of things. No, they're all reading the same books. They're all getting the same sources. They're all being taught the same message. And it only takes a couple of generations where your teacher was taught this and the teacher's teacher, and all the books say the same thing. You're not going to question it. Well, on here we do question it. Thank goodness Wilson and Blackett came along, people like that who do question history, okay? All right, so this is the Wikipedia thing, make sure I missed any. Talking about Augustine's arrival. So Gregory, he was the Pope at the time, he's the one who sent Augustine. So he decreed that these Christians should submit to Augustine and that their bishops should obey him, apparently believing that more of the Roman governmental and ecclesiastical organisation survived in Britain than was actually the case. No. He knows, if we're going to go with this, there was a flourishing Christian church that was nothing to do with Rome at all. All right? And that's what he wanted ended. He wanted them to bend the knee and accept the Roman version of Christianity. So according to the narrative of Bede, if you're listening, Luke, he wants me to call him Beda. He reckons that's correct. I think everyone knows him as Bede. We'll stick with that for now. The Britons hello Luke, see you soon. But the Britons in these regions viewed Augustine with uncertainty, and their suspicion was compounded by a diplomatic misjudgment on Augustine's part. It's a very famous story. In 603, Augustine Ithilbert summoned the British bishops to a meeting south of the Severn. So I'm not sure exactly where that would have been. South of the Severn, be interested to know exactly, because the south runs north-south, really. I assume they mean Somerset, somewhere like that. These guests retired early to confer with their people, who, according to Bede, advised them to judge Augustine based upon the respect he displayed at their next meeting. When Augustine failed to rise from his seat on the entrance of the British bishops, they refused to recognise him as their archbishops. A lovely story. You wonder what the real story behind that. There's a lot of... You can't help but think there's a lot of symbolism going on here. And what they're really talking about. Okay. There were, however, this is the fun bit, deep differences between Augustine and the British Church, you think, that perhaps played a more significant role in preventing an agreement. It's like the ultimate in... Really? At issue with the tonsure? It's to do with where the ball patch is, in case you're wondering. Oh, I'm probably going to get this wrong now. If you look at a monk these days, they have a round tonsure there. And I think the Welsh one was there, or something like that. I mean, really, that wasn't the big issue, okay? It wasn't about haircuts. The observance of Easter, that was a huge thing. Because their original church wanted to have Easter in the spring. Sorry, that's a stupid statement. It's still in the spring, isn't it? The dating, I think there's a lot more to this. Christmas was the first big one to move, because the Roman Church moved that to match the festival of Saturnalius. So that got moved to the midwinter solstice. So the sun dies around about December 21st, you have 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then hallelujah, it's Christmas, all right? That's why that was moved. And a similar story with Easter, where it would seem that actually it does explain, I think, in here, that the British Easter, I would say, reading Wilson and Blackett and putting two and two together, was March the 1st, a fixed day. And that's why it's still the national day of Wales. And Dewi, who is not David, not St. David, he's Dafydd. Dewi is the patron saint of Wales. Dewi being the one with God. Might even be God, or it's Jesus, son of God. All right? March the 1st, Easter. As opposed to putting it onto this lunar cycle. And as I understand it, the basis for the Roman dating, and the dating we still use to this day, by the way, is that Jesus was, the execution said to have taken place on the eve of Passover. Passover being a Jewish festival which calculated on the lunar cycle. So if you're reading the Bible and the execution happens the eve of Passover, and we're talking about the execution, it's got to match your Passover, and then the 3 days for the resurrection is Easter. So that's how we get our current Easter, as I understand it. But of course, the British version wouldn't have gone with any of that, because for one, if Wilson and Blackett are correct, Jesus was alive and well and living in Britain anyway. But anyway, maybe he died at a completely different time. March the 1st seems to be the date they had. Anyway, so again, it's not just which date should we have a holiday, arguing over bank holidays. This Easter, to me, the difference was all to do with did he actually die on the cross? And is the story that Paul introduced about Jesus the true one, or is it the Gnostic one? This is the key. Like I said, I don't think you're just arguing about haircuts and bank holidays. All these things could have been sorted out. Asceticism, whether you live a poor life, whether or not you do this sort of St. David nutty thing of trying to live on cabbage juice and pull in the plough rather than get the oxen to do it. Missionary, organisation. They're like admin things. Yeah, they do have arguments and they do have fallouts, but you find schisms where religions split are over doctrinal issues. They're not over dates, organisations, stuff like that. They just aren't. When you look at Muslim faith, the differences there, it's all to do with, who carried on the word of Muhammad. It's not to do with, what day off do you have and things like that. Right, so some historians believe that Augustine had no real understanding of the history and traditions of the British Church. I love it when you can find something funny on Wikipedia. Damaging his relations with their bishop. I think a little bit more going on than that, don't you? I think you knew damn well what the history was, and if you didn't, you were always going to be in for a shock. Also, there are political dimensions involved. Really? Politics? As Augustine's efforts was sponsored by the Kentish king, and at this period the Wessex, just showed you Wessex where that was, that's over in the west, and we're talking about Kent, and Mercian kingdoms were expanding to the west into areas held by the Britons. Yeah, right. Okay, so I was going to try to do this side by side, wasn't I? The other thing we need to mention here is the British one was what's called the Pelagian heresy. I have to say something about this at this point. He's a British monk and theologian. Look at the dates, right? This is like 200 odd years before Augustine came. And don't forget, according to the official narrative, the Romans were feeding Christians to the lions, They were burning them to death. They were doing terrible things. There was endless persecutions going on. And martyring, killing, murdering Christians. The bones and the numbers were staggering. But in Britain, that did not happen in Britain. There's only, a handful of martyrs. And they're all well known. There's like 2 or 3, not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands. In the catacombs of Rome, there's supposed to be tens of thousands of skeletons, which are said to have been collected by Prudence and her sister, I think it's Claudia, and in Rome, who were in the British palace, which effectively became the church in Rome and run by British people, as shown in the Bible. Actually, I was just going to quickly show... that's that stupid map again. Where have I got my Bible gone? I had the Bible open. Here we are. Oh, excuse me. 1 second. Oh, it's only getting hay fever, which is weird this time of year. You wouldn't expect it, would you? And thank you for the person who put the comment with the tip Yes, I do feel a lot better when I take those antihistamines and my nose does stop itching. Oh, thank you. And if I had a chance to edit this show, that would be taken out. That sneeze, my itchy nose. Right, okay, so if we look at, please, I'll have people do research. I know people ridicule, for some reason, alternative sources like this, or, alternative news and things. When people say, do your own research. Do your own research. No, why not? What's wrong with doing your own research? Have a look for yourself, isn't it? So you are kingjamesbibleonline.org, if you can read that. That's the one I use. It's all free. King James Bible. There's no copyright, so you can copy it, do what you like with it. So all you have to do then, it's very good. You select the book. So if you've got Timothy 2 or 2 Timothy, dunk. Right at the end, so it's easy to find. Come down here. Bom, bom, bom. Right, so, and the Lord shall deliver me from every evil work, and will preserve me unto his heavenly kingdom, to whom be glory for ever and ever. Amen. Amen, sorry. Right. Salute Prisca and Aquila and the household of Onesiphorus. Erastus abode at Corinth, but Trophimus have I left at Miletum sick. Here we go. Right. Do thy diligence to come before winter. Eubulus greeteth thee, Pudens, Linus, Claudia, and all the brethren. These are British people, okay? We can find them, we can show them. And the Linus shown there, whoops-a-daisy, he's the one who becomes the first Bishop of Rome. Pope was less letters on the headline. It's actually Bishop of Rome. There was no one actually called Pope for another good few hundred years yet. The Lord Jesus Christ be with thy spirit. Grace be with you. Amen. And this is the second epistle, letter that means, unto Timotheus, ordained the first bishop of the church of the Ephesians, was written from Rome when Paul was brought before Nero the second time. Okay, I'm going to get into all of that part of it. The key point we're looking at, here's Linus, here's Claudia, and here's Pudens, all right? Very early Christians. Some of the first Christians in the world, and they were Britons, and they were in Rome as well. That's why they come into the story there, okay? Right, hang on, let's get back to this, because I don't know where I am anymore. I usually ramble, trying to hold it together. So, if we go back to the book, look how many things I've got open. Wow. Okay, let's look, here we go. So the main body of the original Church of Western Europe was and is the West of Britain. And the people there refused to accept Rome at any cost. And the religious wars that were to rage for centuries in Britain, some way still running, began in 609. The Welsh clergy, different view on things, that their priests could marry, they're having children, church offices went from father to son. So you get the religious history. I can hear Arnie warming up. My goodness, almost 9:30 already. So in delving into religious history, both Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett realised that they were entering into uncharted territory. For years, they had tried to avoid. This is why this book came out so late. A lot of the work and the notes they did back in the 80s and 90s. But naively, I would say, no, not naive, that's not fair. With the best possible will in the world, they were trying to avoid the really controversial stuff like this and just try and get the Arthur story across. They had no idea how much abuse they were going to get. Like the Celtic thing. If you look in the first books, they will actually use the words Celtic to describe some British things, like the Celtic Church. They already knew that was probably incorrect or the wrong word. They thought, well, we can't do everything at once. If we change everything, it's going to get thrown out. So we'll use the existing jargon, we'll use existing names, and let's hope it gives us a crack of the whip. It didn't anyway. So as we come on now, it's like, all right, what the heck? Let's put out the full story. Let's talk about Christianity. Everyone's annoyed anyway. Let's call things what they are. All right, now these books are fascinating here. Because what Wilson and Blackett had to do then, because they research, their reading is phenomenal. All these old books, we had to look into them and try and work out what on earth is going on with them. Oh, by the way, here's the keys to heaven. This is what promised to the Anglo-Saxons. Is still part of the papal crest. The only, I believe, from the days when I used to paint lots of flags and do art and things. It's the only time you see yellow and white together. Partly because it's a really bad combination for seeing, but anyway. There's the crease, and there's that weird papal hat. And with the 3 crowns on it. Here we go again, triple crown, cross keys. I forgot what that stands for now, but there you go. There's the 2 Timothy, which I've just gone through with you. Synod of Whitby. Ah, yes, right, okay, here we go. Right, 1 second, I need to open this page. You can do this, Ross, come on. Right, just copy that from there. I think I've already got this open somewhere, but it's easier for me to start it again, I think. So I rather like this. It's a nice change from just looking at blinking Wikipedia, which I tend to do just to show how silly it is, by the way, rather than use it as a research thing. I do find it's usually pretty good on dates and names and things like that, I have to say. Right, okay. This is great. Okay, so this is the official now English Heritage. Brilliant. Bring a cup of tea, Ange. Thank you very much. Isn't Angela wonderful? Get some water as well, please. It's cold water. Oh, someone's been drinking. You have been drinking it, have you? Okay. Look well. Right, how the Synod of Whitby settled the date of Easter. And you can read some of the stuff I said on there. The missionaries gathered together. Right, but the key I want to look at, not go through all of how they dated it and everything, the movable feast, you can read all that yourself. Anglo-Saxons, jar. Right, there's a second. St. Hild was there, Abbess Hild, very famous. And this is the argument then. You are Peter, and upon this rock I build my church and the gates, therefore you can say what you like, you're in charge. People couldn't argue with this. But the point I want to look at, there's that bit, clear-cut divisions, okay? But the clear point it makes here is the talk between, the difference between the Anglo-Saxons, all they're talking about, here we go. This is it, this is a bit I wanted, so it took a while to find it. This bit. Look at this. Spot what's been changed on this. What seems strange? Let's have a think about this sentence. So the dominant Anglo-Saxon kingdom was Christianized from the 620s onwards by both Roman and Irish missionaries. But the Roman and Irish traditions had different practices, particularly in their ways of calculating the date of Easter. Well, where's the British? Where's the British in this? This is the key. Where are the British? Yeah, okay, Romans and Irish might disagree, and they're at the argument. Because what's happened then, so they have disagreements. This was an internal, I think this is overlooked by people, this sort of summit, this conference to work out what the rules are going to be, was basically a row between different parts of the same church. Because Ireland had already gone over to the Roman side since the times of Patrick. So they got these various arguments. But it's, if you notice, there's no involvement or mention there of the British Church. The original British Apostolic Church is not part of this agreement. Because as Al Wilson points out, this was a local issue about the church in Northumbria bending over to the will. It not about what was happening across Britain. It's not, the British Church did not surrender at this point. That's the point we're getting to. That's what's presented. It's not true. And in fairness to English heritage, they've added this little bit at the end here. Some modern historians, is that their way of saying Wilson and Blackett? Surely not. Do they get a mention? I doubt it. Have interpreted the synod as early evidence of a clash between the centralising authority papacy in Rome and an independent native Celtic or British church. See, the tide is turning. You would not have seen that on there a few years ago. Definitely not 10 years ago. Absolutely no way. We're being forced, and I think partly what we're doing here is causing this change. And writers, particularly Wilson and Blackett, are causing this to be recognised. It has to be. So we are winning, folks. We are winning. Give it another, 500 years. Well, maybe a bit less than that, perhaps. This might start getting back into the history books, because it used to be in history books. This is not come from nowhere. This was taught, all right? up until fairly recently, last couple of 100 years. And in Wales, a lot of this was taught up until the 1930s, not even 100 years ago. How weird is that? I've got old books here from schools. All the King Arthur stuff, Trojan origins, all the other things we talk about are in the books. The book's disappearing, of course. Let's get hard copies. Anyway, they call it Celtic, right? Fine, so we know all about that. British Church. For these historians, events in 7th century Northumbria foreshadowed the Reformation of the 16th century and the establishment of the Protestant Church of England, which rejected papal authority. It's pretty close to what we're saying. They put a little bit of twist on it, which makes it fall down. A little bit of straw man argument they're correcting. But in reality, anyway, no, that's all a little rubbish. Let's get back to the mainstream view. This was far from being the case. The Irish and Roman missionaries shared the same fundamental beliefs. I agree, yes. But they're not the British Church. That's not them. What they call the Celtic Church is not them either. There's much more that united them and divided them. I agree, totally. By the time of the Synod, the Southern Irish had already adopted the Roman calculation of Easter. I keep going on about this calculation of Easter. That's a red herring, in my view. So, bully for them. Well done, Southern Ireland. Nothing against it. They're still Catholic to this day. It's not the conversion of Britain. Nevertheless, by standardising the practices of Northumbrian Church, just Northumbrian Church, not all English churches, according to the Roman tradition, the Synod was a landmark in the history of the Church in England, one which brought together two Christian traditions already in the process of merging. It didn't bring together the main Christian beliefs of the time throughout Britain, which was the apostolic Christianity, which didn't involve half the things that were being discussed here, and the holy days and all that kind of stuff. It endures to this day. So you can see how it's still being kind of pushed out, but also, oh, you couldn't see it. Thanks, Leon. So you can read out a little bit yourself there. Oh, I didn't realise it wasn't on share. I do apologise. I'll show you that page again. Yeah, you could see it, couldn't you? English history, here we are, histories and stories. Just go to englishheritage.org. I'll put all the links up. Might take me a day or two. All right, how the Synod of Whitby settled the date. You can read all that. The bit I just concentrated on is towards the end here. Clear-cut divisions, modern historians, and how it works out there. Okay? All right, sorry about that. It's difficult. I'm jumping around the screens. All right, so this is why it's so important, okay? All right, we're almost there. 25 to 10. Wow. So what we have then is all these early books. And this, when I first read this, it almost turned my stomach, really. Whoop. Oh my goodness. Where's my book gone? There's the book. I want the slideshow on the right-hand side. Yes, okay. All right, and the other bizarre thing as well, they find scraps like this and make them into books, you know, and even the contents of the books, when you go through them, it doesn't, they don't really add up. This is the problem. As being any sort of factually correct. There's another one there, moratorium, if you like. And then you got the Clementine literature, which you can look up this, and even it's all tied in with Gnosticism. It's a whole subject. We haven't got time to go into that tonight. We're getting more into, I don't know what you want to call it, philosophy maybe of religion. The point we're doing here is that all these old books, well, we'll come on to it. They were created to give stories. You'll see that some of the writers at the time, these scholars, are writing out of love of Paul. It's like we know there's no record of this happening, but it would be so good if it had. It'd be so wonderful if this story was true. And they're making up all these miracles and amazing things that happen. And it's, I do it for the love of it, you know. They didn't consider what they were doing as fraud, which is what it is. But the problem is, over time, these things get repeated and repeated and repeated, and they become fact, and people forget. These were the novels of the time. These are the bestsellers. These are the Sharp's Adventures, you know. These were the Catherine Cookson's. These books were the big, big sellers. The stories didn't matter if they were true. They reinforced the message, and they were a darn good read, and that's what made them successful. So what's happened in more modern times, academics have looked at a lot of these to try and get to the bottom of them. We'll look at a guy called Streeter in a minute. And the other thing that came along is the Dead Sea Scrolls found in Nag Hammadi. the codices there, because they seem, and that's another whole evening, the Dead Sea Scrolls. But if we look them up at all, right, I'm going to do this now. I think I've got these open already here. Oh, that'd be so cool if I got that. That's the next one I need, all right? Let's shut some of these down, I think. That'll probably help, wouldn't it? Stop my computer crashing as well. Cinder Whitby. See, no, I don't use any notes at all. Council of Trent, that's the one in Italy. Let's get rid of some of these. Celtic Christianity. Although someone showed me a new theory about the word Celtic actually being British, so I have to have a look at that. And I might have to make another about turn. Got to be prepared to change your position on things. Therefore, try to avoid saying it's definitely this, It's not definitely anything. And also, there's always a case of from this evidence or from that writer or from what we found here shows us, this direction or this is probably right. And then you can change if you have to, okay? Because we're dealing with history here, not faith. If you've got your absolute beliefs and convictions, that's fine. That's a different thing, okay? This is a historic discussion rather than a faith discussion of what's actually, the correct, if you like. Oh, I sort of actually found the page before. All right, we're done with you, Pelagius. Done with you, Council of Trent. Thomas Ellman, might come on to you, I don't know. Oh, no, come on. All right, okay. Right, let's go back to the book. I do apologise. We got into Reverend Streeter instead. The problem with Dead Sea Scrolls found in Nag Hammadi is that they claim to be dated to 4th, 5th centuries, where they try and get them to. This clearly very, very old, and they don't match the stories in the Bible. This is the problem. That's the bottom line. They've been, again, most people today probably haven't heard them anyway, Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff. It was huge, huge, huge news going way back to the 1960s or something, and then they sat on them for decades, not allowing, again, any access or people to really look at them. So by the time they finally did release them, I don't know, probably 20 odd years ago, that's all, they're quite recent, they're finally gone out of it. People had lost interest. Very clever way of doing it. Big find, massive news, international media attention, you can't look. Make people wait 20, 30 years, maybe 40 years, and then just release it, and no one's interested. It happens all the time. That's what's happened with these, because they do not fit the story. Right, let's get into it. So the Reverend treated the primitive church, and this Reverend, there we go. I was going to go on to some university websites, and you could see there's a big discussion whether they're written by monks or whether they're written by Greek academics, but it's not really. There's this chap, Bernard Hillman Streeter, great academic of his time, from Cambridgeshire area, theologian, studied, became a bishop, became part of the this sort of group, if you like, work committee from the Archbishop to look into which of the ancient documents are correct. Let's try and put a canon of work together and really look into it and try and find out what's happening. And it's quite recent. I mean, he died in 1937. So this is fairly recent, okay? And he wrote a famous book here called The Primitive Church. And chapter 1 is entitled History and Legend, the Apocryphal Acts. Apocryphal, like it's all hearsay. It's descriptions of events. And he immediately shows where he was coming from with what became of the 12 apostles. Where did they all go? That is a question to which legend will give a vivacious answer, but history is strangely silent. You imagine this day, if you ever met Alan Wilson, it'd be absolutely awesome. He's bloody silent. There's tons of things about it. The problem is, as he puts it here, there's no way an Oxford scholar, a cleric of the Church of England, there's no way on planet Earth that this English gentleman would ever demean himself and condescend to read ancient British and Cymric Welsh history. So he just ignores the mass wealth of evidence on his doorstep and proceeds with an eminently readable analysis of so-called evidence for early Christianity. So just to clarify this, he's saying he can't find any historical documents, he can't find any evidence, so let's just look at the stories we've got and see if they stand up. And that's where his work becomes useful, okay? Oh, sorry. They invented early Christianity For stories about great men, there's always a popular demand, like I was saying, the best sellers of their time. In a Christian church, this was catered for, in the first instance, by persons who saw here an opportunity for commending a particular type of doctrine or ethical practice. The earliest to perceive and to exploit this was someone called Lucius, who produced a work of pure imagination, The Acts of John, a novel religious purpose, that of advocating a Gnostic or semi-Gnostic interpretation of Christianity. So he's having to go to the other versions of Christianity. Then that was a bestseller, did really well. They're raving about it, all those monks and their vows of silence. This is great, they're getting all that. It was getting the big one. It was the big seller book. So then it's like, this is great, man. It's like Star Wars, Let's have Star Wars 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So we'll have Acts of Paul, Acts of Peter, Recensions, the Clementines, Acts of Andrew, Acts of Thomas. All in this period, we're knocking these books out, was big business. And as Alan Wilson puts it, in short, a school of inventive novelists were quickly active in a true Hollywood history fashion, manufacturing novels to influence the faithful. All right, so you can go through all of this if you read the book. And it explains how the stories don't add up. And that they were novels. They were fictional stories written with a Christian message running through them. Very much like was done in Victorian England. I think in Victorian times, you have this strong Christian message running through them of the great British person, or this image of John Bull. Right, now one of the interesting ones here is this Clementine's novel, and this will shock you a bit. Because the Clementine's novel, the main plot of the Clementines concerns... Actually, this next one will shock you. This was just weird. Alleged contest between Peter and Simon Magus, a disciple of John the Baptist. This gets into a whole other topic, which we must do another time. Oh, gosh. You see? I'm trying to catch up with the work. We have 3 subjects. I've just realised we need to do something I hadn't realised, and it's slightly divert, is that, remember, remind me to put the thing back on again when I start scrolling that, right? One of the other things that's in this book, there's far more in this book than just where Jesus is buried, like a treasure hunt, although that's in there as well, is originally seems to have been a massive contest. Not early Christians, start again. The message of John the Baptist was not the same as the message of Jesus the Nazarene. Their followers were in competition. They were competing. They did not have the same viewpoint. This is how it would seem. It would actually seem they're very rival. And for a long time, particularly in medieval times, it was John the Baptist who was considered the main man. He was the head of their form of Christianity. So you can imagine how difficult that is for the Roman Church. If they got a whole arm of Christianity, a massive arm of Christianity, not even putting Jesus in the top spot. They say John was the martyr. He was the one. He was a Christian, and his message was different. And there were whole areas supporting John the Baptist as a completely different outlook on things. And none of these things are ever mentioned in church, isn't it? It was not a straight path. There was not one Bible and everyone followed it. It never was like that. It still isn't like that now. There's hundreds of Bibles. In those times, getting to write the Bibles, getting to write the books, that's the power, like it always is. The famous Winston Churchill quote, was he said, talking about how history will deal with him. He said, no, history will deal kindly with me because I'll be writing it. And sure enough, you got Winston Churchill's history books saying how great Winston Churchill is. And now we all go around saying how great Winston Churchill is. Same here, okay? So you've got this alleged contest between Peter and Simon Magus. And Simon Magus is a disciple of John the Baptist. So this is a religious clash. Here Peter pursues Simon Magus, the Magi. He's calling him magician. It's like an evil magician. And I wish that wouldn't keep coming up. Really annoys me. From city and town to city and town before finally defeating him in doctrinal arguments and by outwitting his magic with the mixtures of miracles and clever ruses. It's interesting, as it says here, that magic, when used by Peter, is styled as miraculous. If the other guy uses it, he's an evil mage. Okay, so all this contest went all over the place. And the homilies describes these letters as, 10 to 10. What you can do is, you can work out the logic at the book. They don't add up. What it does show is that Linus must have been the head of what you would call the church in Rome before Peter ever got going. And there's no actual nonsense, evidence that Peter even went to Rome. And we are going to come on to that in a second, all right? What's the old Hollywood film from the 1950s? Come on, Ross, forgotten in a second. You know the one. So I'll tell you something, mate. Why? You're supposed to tell me while I'm scrolling. All right, okay. So anyway, there's no need to see that. All right, you can read this yourself. So what we have then is the homilies, and you put them all together. So you have a situation where these are supposed to be very, very ancient letters, okay, right back to the times immediately after the crucifixion. So the letter of Peter to James, who's the brother of Jesus, puts the virgin birth in a whole new light when there's all his brothers and sisters around. James might even have been a twin. I worked that one out. In this letter, Peter salutes James as his superior. Peter salutes James. Peter salutes James, okay? The Lord and Bishop of the Holy Church and the Father of all. Father of all. He's calling James that. And explains that he had taught adherence to the laws of Moses, but his teaching had been misrepresented. You can read all this in the Bible. There's some of this in the Bible as well. The second letter is allegedly written by Rufinus, and his preface to the Latin translation of these bogus novels called Recognitions. The original Greek being conveniently lost. Yeah, the original's always lost. And then we have to just believe. So the letter in which the same Clement, writing to James, the Lord's brother, informs him of the death of Peter. Peter's died. And that he had left him, Clement, as his successor in his church teaching, and in which the whole subject of the church order is treated of. I have not prefixed to this work. This we have to think a bit logically now. So did Peter die before James? Based on this letter, if true, this would mean that Peter died before James the Just, the brother of Jesus, who succeeded Jesus as head of the church. After Jesus died, James took over. As James the Just was judiciously murdered, we covered some of this before, Paul was probably the instigator of that, this would mean that Peter had to die before AD 62. All right, he's already died. It would also mean that Peter died before Paul ever arrived in Rome. So the statement of Irenaeus is therefore clearly false. Irenaeus makes Linus. So this makes, if you read it through, this makes Linus the first bishop of Rome. And Clement is the bishop of Rome after the time of Peter and Paul. None of that makes any sense. There's some difficulty with Rufinus, as the real-life Rufinus married Claudia, the daughter of King Clement I. You need to read the whole chapter. What it's showing is, if you put the events in order, Peter did not have any time to go to Rome. It's really hard to find when Paul have had time. You can map out his life. It seems, when could he have gone to Rome? All the other places he went to, how could he have got there? How could Peter have got there? I know Paul had their Roman citizenship and all that kind of thing, but did he actually get there? It doesn't seem to stand up. And if you look, I don't want to bring it into this, we're talking Wilson and Blackett tonight, but if you bring in the Russian historians like Fomenko and Molokov and people like that, there's a lot of evidence to show that Rome as a major city did not really get going till the 16th century and its Renaissance. And Rome has been inserted to give a backstory to the church to make it seem more important and more ancient. This is a crucial document. I want to mention this, and I'll close with this one. I'm not going to do the one more. All this is massively important. This is what the Roman Church based its, how can you say, the situation whereby the Roman Empire gradually became, the Holy Roman Empire became the church. So the idea was you had this massive sprawling military empire. Constantine was the great, and he has then left his empire to the church to say, right, you're the church, off you go. And this is what gave the Bishop of Rome and alleged supremacy in Western Europe. The problem is what's known as the Decretals of Constantine were forged. They were made up afterwards, well after his death, nothing to do with Constantine, and they were used, and this has been admitted, right? This has been admitted. It's the chief documentary basis for the more grandiose of the papal claims. The papal claim is based on this. And if you look, hang on, let me find this where it is. Here we go. They call it Donation of Constantine here. Donatio Constantini. It's a forged Roman. Even Wiki says it. Everyone says it. It's well known. It's a forged Roman imperial decree by which the 4th century emperor Constantine the Great supposedly transferred authority over Rome and the western part of the Roman Empire to the Pope. It was composed probably in the 8th century, 400 years after the event. It was used, especially in the 13th century, in support of claims of political authority by the papacy. Now, how many people have heard of the Donation of Constantine as the basis of the Roman Church? Not the faith part, this is like the physical, running Europe. In many of the existing manuscripts, handwritten copies of the document, including the oldest one, the document bears the title Constitutum Domini Constantini Imperatoris. The Donation of Constantine was included in the 9th century collection Pseudo-Isidorian Decretals. Lorenzo Valla, an Italian Catholic priest and Renaissance humanist, is credited with first exposing the forgery with solid philological arguments in 1439. Oh. It's been contested since 1001. Can you believe it? It's another one. It's like blinking. Oh, come on, Ross, wake up. Glastonbury, isn't it? Like, it's a forgery. It doesn't matter how often it's exposed. It's been exposed over 1,000 years. How mad is that? And yet, that would bother taking the authority away because, they've been in charge for 100, 200 years, so, all right, it was a forgery, so what? What are you going to do about it? Take us to court? We're running the show, and that's the end of it. So, it doesn't matter if it's a bit like Glastonbury. The forgery, the fake, has been exposed not far off 1,000 years ago, 800, 900 years ago, as a fake, and yet it still runs. Because every generation you have to prove these points again and try and get these sacred cows knocked down. How mad is it? Anyway, we are coming towards the end now. Here's the bit, hang on. Yep. We've done most of those now, I think. Hang on. You can see how it works now. I don't normally have notes at all, but let's go back to our story. Okay. The rivalry between the disciples John and Jesus, I've touched on that. You can read it as well. Simon Magus, who he was. I did find some interesting pictures about Simon Magus. Here we go. Quo vadis Domini. Right. If, like me, you like old films, or used to, I used to watch things on the mainstream things. Quo vadis were fantastic. I'm going to say 1950s Technicolor widescreen extravaganzas, all-star cast, and it's all to do with Christian revelation, all this. And as soon as you see that, as soon as you realise it's on a big film, at the time, I think it was the first film in Technicolor or something like that. It was huge, massive around the world. And when I read this, all I had was the notes to make this into a book. It's all Wilson Blackett's writing, but it had to be, pulled together. And I thought, yeah, ain't that blinking typical? In the same way as the article we're talking about Great Fire of London being the main thing you taught in school. The first thing, gunpowder plot, no, didn't happen like that. What's the other things we taught? Roman Empire, don't think so. And this is another one of those ones. The fact that it had so much attention and such a huge budget film should immediately make you suspicious. All right, start questioning. It just seems to be the way it works. Oh, I feel bad saying this because I was so mainstream for so long, So this is the idea anyway. Oh, there's Simon Magus. There's the logic of that. There's the donation of Constantine. I mean, it's all sorts of great pictures and everything. It's part of religious doctrine. Here we go. Quo vadis Domini. So I'll just read it from the book here. The other favourite story of Peter is the one where he decides to flee from Rome to escape from the persecution of the Christians by the Emperor Nero. This fable is generally known by the phrase Quo vadis Domine. Where are you going, Lord? This yarn, I love that. This yarn tells how, as the fleeing Peter was hastening along the Appian Way out from Rome, he met none other than Jesus the Nazarene. In astonishment, he asked Jesus, "Where are you going, Lord?" And the Spirit of Jesus then answered him that, "I am going to Rome to be crucified again." So, once someone points out how ridiculous it is, yeah, it ruined the film for me, but anyway, it's not the main part of the film. You can still enjoy the film, okay? So Peter then turned around and went back to Rome, and he succeeded in getting himself crucified by Nero. This is the official story. By deliberately getting himself killed, Peter thus terminated any future missionary work on behalf of his faith, and this again beggars the imagination. Oh, it says here as well, a Hollywood epic film was made concerning the tale titled Quo Vadis, and like all Hollywood history, it relies upon a fake, as this whole story was invented around AD 150, or at least propagated by Justin Martyr around 152, and is merely another episode in the original soap opera. I'm sorry it's a bit depressing sometimes, all these great stories we're brought up on turn out to be fakes and that. It depends. Do you like the stories more, or do you like to get to the bottom and find the truth more? Because the one thing I would say through all this, we're willing to get to, so I might sound a bit like a preacher now, which I don't want to, but this, I think I mentioned it already this evening, the message, whatever it was accepted without all these silly stories and fables. They were writing these things in the 150s, 200s, it's 300s-400s before the Church of Rome really got going, even on the chronology we're fed. By that stage, this thing was already taken over. It might be more than coincidence that Bardism and Buddhism are pretty much the same word, in the same way as Buddha can also be read in Welsh as the good life. Bardism and Buddhism, they both got reincarnation, they got lots of similarities. Some sort of message of universal truth seems to have gone around that was extremely popular and caught on. And it was sort of, it seems to have been the Roman Church version. I'm very anti-Catholic, I'm really not. My father taught in a Catholic school. I'm brought up on Catholic festivals, really, so there you go. It's just historical, all right? Don't be offended or take it the wrong way. If you fed a certain message, you're going to go with it, aren't you? All our views are based on knowledge we've accumulated through whatever sources. That's all we can base it on. So if someone else got different experiences and knowledge to you, they might come to a different conclusion, all right? Don't say they're stupid or anything. Right. So you can read all these stories here. Quo vadis Domini. Right, now I want to get to the big punch at the end. Let's go to the book. Put a nice full screen, make it easier. Right, there's no traceable record of Peter ever going to Rome. This is the dates thing. If he was arrested, as he was arrested by King Agrippa II, and held in jail between 43 and 44 AD, and mysteriously released, probably when Agrippa died in 44, he would have been an escaped felon. This would have made him a fugitive from justice, not only in Judea, but in all parts of the Roman Empire. This may account for the fact that the letter attributed to him in the New Testament of the Christian Bible ends with salutations from Babylon to the recipients of the letter. Modern religious scholars actually doubt the authenticity of both letters attributed to Peter, but Babylon would have been outside the Roman Empire. So much in the same way as Jesus fled west to get out the Roman Empire, Peter would have fled east. There were 3 great Hebrew temples, one at Jerusalem, a second founded by Onias in the Egyptian Delta, and a third at Babylon. And so there are very few substantial Israelite Judean populations. There were substantial Israelite Judean populations at all 3 places. we've got to mention some of James the Just because he should be a much bigger part of history than he is. One thing is certain about Peter, and that is that James the Just, the brother of Jesus and Nazarene, took over the leadership of the religious group and movement after Jesus was crucified, and not Peter. James is not only very well known to have adopted the mantle of leadership after his brother departed from the scene, he actually... What happened there? Wow, sorry. That was a bit weird. What happened there? Sorry, there's something gone a bit strange. Like on backwards. Did Peter ever go to Rome? He actually sent Peter. There we go. He ordered Peter, and you can find references to that. It's in the book as well. He sends Peter on an errand. He's the one in charge. Now, as James the Just was in the position of leader until he was murdered in 62, how could Peter ever be the head of the church? It's not possible. The idea of Peter being the appointed successor of Jesus is simply an exaggeration or misconception. This whole idea, you are the rock I should build my church on, James took over, not Peter. The problem facing the Church of Rome is that both of the tales, always content, that claim that Peter was in Rome are both plainly fiction. Neither has any substance, and both are doubtful, if not quite spurious. The tale of Peter confronting Simon and Magus in Rome is known to be false. The story of Quo Vadis Domine is generally known to have been a fake invention around AD 150, and that gets the stories. Now, go on about this now. There's lots of Peter churches in Wales, so why is that? You've got Whithorn, Stone, Galway, all these things you can read about yourselves. Say the download will be available. We've got St. Peter's Church in Glamorgan. There's a bit at the end I want to get to because it is getting late. It's been a long show, so thanks for bearing with me. Still got a great turnout, which is brilliant. Right, hang on a second. So at the Timothy 2, which I already showed you. I'm going to jump down here in a minute. It's equally puzzling that the section of the Bible New Testament that is attributed to St. Peter ends with a statement made by the sender commending the recipient of this epistle to the best wishes of the group sending the letter from Babylon. Alright, so it's making that point again. Right, the conclusion. Oop. And not me or the conclusion. Alan Wilson's worse than me for coming to a conclusion and thinking a bit more and have another one. So at the end of the day, or Arnie, if you're listening, you need to come and bring your violin, please. Come towards the end. At the end of the day, we have a very clear exhibition of the most atrocious and blatant mass rewriting and invention of forged history anywhere on planet Earth. And the guilty parties, the arrogant forgers, are the London regime and the Church of Rome. This is the, have some of that bit. These power-mad organisations are guilty of centuries of gross criminality on a huge scale. The victims and the losers in this catalogue of vast crimes are the long-suffering Cymry, in particular, and the entire British race in general. One final point might be worthy of consideration. In the much fuller version of the Hebrew, Israelite, and finally Judean history written by Flavius Josephus, and in rabbinical writings, the deity Yahweh is reported as having departed from Jerusalem. This is the shocking bit, all right? Josephus says Yahweh, who is a storm god, local god, as having departed from Jerusalem at the critical period of the first onset by the Roman army. We notice this significant fact on page 258 of Dr. Robert Eisenman's book, having read it ourselves in the War of the Jews, and somehow missed the point. The tradition, as we have it, in Rosh Hashanah, is described to R. Yohanan and is followed in 31b by a fuller statement. This time a notice about how the divine presence tarried in the wilderness 6 months, waiting for Israel to repent. Because don't forget, we have this modern idea that it's all about Israel for the Christian fundamentalists and stuff. The note too about the departure of the divine presence from the temple before its destruction is reminiscent of Flavius Josephus' description of the departure of the divine presence from the temple in the context of the discussion of the star prophecy at the end of the Jewish war, etc. As the priests were going by night into the inner court of the temple, this is from Josephus now, okay? As their custom was to perform their sacred ministrations, they said that, in the first place, They felt a quaking and heard a great noise. And after that, they heard a sound as of a great multitude saying, "Let us remove from here." This ties in with all sorts of stuff then about lost tribes and all that kind of thing. So it was believed that Yahweh remained outside Jerusalem in the wilderness for 6 months before finally deciding to go elsewhere. So if Yahweh has or needs a permanent spot on planet Earth from which to rule, then it is not Jerusalem. He does not live there anymore, at least not since AD 70. If the Ark of the Covenant is relevant, this is when we come back to South Wales again, and then there is no problem, as we believe we know precisely where the Ark is, as in published here on the videos. As British citizens born and bred from old families, we simply demand that our native British history, heritage and culture must now be restored to us. All that needs to be done to prove that our native British history is to be absolutely authentic, correct and accurate is to dig some holes at very specific places. What lies buried in these sites will prove beyond all doubt that the several thousand Cymric historians and writers who worked to preserve our British heritage for us over hundreds of years were honourable scholars who determinedly safeguarded our historical legacies for us. Oh, hang on, and that's it. So there you go. This is I noticed, judging by the viewing figures, these topics are the most popular. The book hasn't been though. As you can see, there's loads in this, loads in it. If you like this kind of thing, buy a copy of the book. We're only funding is book sales and donations, so it is appreciated by us, and you will get really good value out of it. And you have to have physical copies of things. You can't rely on this channel to be taken down. You might say the wrong thing tonight, and boom, it's gone. And what was everyone going to do then? Because this is you got the forum as well. Don't forget. So the first question springs to mind, so where is Yahweh now? And I don't know the answer to. And I'll probably get myself in trouble already. And if any of Dr. Pigeon's supporters are watching all this, I know some are, they're in my house. It can stimulate some interesting conversation the next few days. So thank you very much, everyone. And, oh yeah, hang on. It's not supposed to work like that. This is supposed to look really cool. Hang on. Let's do this bit. Oh. So all downloads are free for the members. And thanks very much. And thanks to all those who do contribute, because without you, this would not be possible. Right, Arnie B. I'm going to read some of the comments in a minute, have a little bit of chat. What are you going to play for us tonight, Arnie B?
Oh, many suggestions from you? Anything you'd like?
Oh, any suggestions, any requests? Hang on, I can imagine there's lots of comments tonight.
Chat, so you come to live chat.
Oh, I've done wrong again now, on.
Live chat.
I don't think it's that any different, though, is it?
It does make a difference. I've seen before.
Oh, all right. Get your guitar out. Ah, yeah, see, people ask me to play my guitar. It's so rare I get a request. Oh, it's a bit late now, isn't it? I need, I'm not like him. I need things like music and stuff. Although, if you could find my Arthur the Musical songs. I'm going to do some Arthur the Musical songs next week. I won't call it musical, I'll just say Arthur songs. So I've written a song about Arthur, young Arthur, a song about young Guinevere, a song about the priests, the whole thing, the whole Arthur story, Arthur II. I'm going to do some of them next week. So if I see that the viewing is collapse, I'll take the hint. Right now, people are saying good night now. I'm going to read some of the questions, see what points we got there. Oh, tell us, play. I asked you to learn. There was one. Gone. It's gone. Oh, the Benny Hill music. Did you have a chance to learn that yet?
Oh, I can play it. It's quite simple.
All right, okay, go on. There we are. A bit of that's a bit of funny. Get your guitar, Ross. Oh, thank you, Akamose. It's there. Don't tell them the guitars. I have to tune it and all that kind of thing and play it for it, won't I? Thanks. You see where the music's gone? I had the music out, didn't I? Where's the Arthur song? Close it, cleared my desk. I've been here much this week. All right, we're gonna have. We thought of saying, why do we want to? Why we learn the Benny Hill music, Arnie?
I don't know. I can't remember.
It was something we were watching, wasn't it? People running around. Anyway, I thought it'd be funny. Right, okay, let's just read some stories. I can only go back so far. Okay, so Divine Feminine 369. Sounds like a story for trouble. Reformation. Reset back in the day. Yes, it was, Akmase, wasn't it? Dave Powell. The brass. You make it sound like classical music, Arne. That's quite a talent. The brass age is just before the roads of Londinium were paved with gold. I like it. Yeah. Ian Briggs, an allegory of the sun's course through the year, the ecliptic. Ah, yeah, okay. Alright, I'll definitely play some guitar next week. I was going to play tonight, actually. Luckily, there is no Bronze Age and no one can ever convert any fossil into any kind of fuel. Yeah, go with that. So Scarab City saying why, I'm not sure which bit. 12 houses, sun dies for 3 days. Yes, the sun goes down the 21st, days passage till the 25th. Yeah, and I say you can make all this fuss about... Thank you, Arnie B. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So that's it. I won't bring up any new topics now. I promise. Do you want to go to bed? It's school tomorrow.
Aww.
Any children watching or playing violins? Look at that. You had a long day. Man, I got to just quickly mention your rugby this morning, Arnie. Oh, my goodness. I'll put a clip up of the game. Because I do film the matches. I do a commentary and everything. And I can't share the whole film because of... the world's gone mad, isn't it? There's something weird about watching... boys playing rugby. I don't know. Some sort of sick person's got some weird thing out of that. But anyway, you're not meant to publicise these things. I have to can't list the videos and that. But they are fun. And the guy, congratulations to you, whoever you are, mate. Arnie plays tight head prop and the open side prop against him today. Must have been 6'3" arm, wasn't he? He's about 16, 17 stone, and you have to start with a beard. They're only supposed to be 13. You had him, didn't you, Arn? Well, most of the time, anyway. Oh, hang on, mate. Everything's gone blank in. Okay,
Yeah, it's still alright.
okay, so can the other computer's not on this one. Yeah, what is a fossil? David Church, I tell you what I'm going to do is, I really want to do I've got to do some more research, because I was chatting to my cousin yesterday, and, this morning, my goodness, I can't believe it was this morning, because I was in West Wales last night, wasn't I? The Joe Calzaghe evening, which is really interesting. And, that's why I had much sleep. And he was saying, what about the dinosaurs and stuff like that? And I want to know more about the dinosaurs, because I picked up lots of bits and pieces about that not being as solid as it seems to be. For a start, none of them could stand up. Their bones would crush because it'd be too heavy, and the heart would have to be the size of a room to get the blood around a brontosaurus. So if anyone knows more about the myth of dinosaurs, please drop me an email or message or something like that. Because, there we are. I don't think the world's that old necessarily. That's weird. At least not the bit we live on. Oh, God, I'm getting myself into trouble now. Right, Johnny Big Spud, arts from France, like Bernard, a high Germanic Northman who found France and saved Spain's Muslin for Iron 1-2. Okay, yeah, I think. Yeah, turning water into wine. There's a typo there. Turning water into wine, I think it's meant to be. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. People are more interested in that kind of stuff than they are in what the message is, isn't it? Uh-oh. Right. Oh, there's loads more. Right, okay, let's have a look at... why would an escaped felon be prevented from travelling to Rome? Did they get a black mark in their passport? Were they branded visibly? Good question, but I think if he's... I think the point is, if he was well-known and a very public preacher, as Peter appears to have been, he would have been unlikely to have risked it. I think that's the idea there. He would have been spotted. Ahmed says he was Roman. I was talking about Paul or Peter there. Right, okay. I have to say that bit about Peter, I don't 100%. I'm hoping it's one of the things I'm seeing Alan in a couple of months. And it's one of the ones I'm hoping I can get him to talk about. Right, the mother of Constantine, Helena, was British. Yes, Squirrel Sniper, yes. She was born in Drepanum in Bithynia. The daughter of Coil, Old King Coil from the nursery rhyme. Yeah, I don't know about the place Drepanum. I know where that is, Squirrel. I'm not disputing what you're saying. Somebody had it called that. He had a Kevlar passport. Like 9/11, yes. I was born in Exeter. Oh, right, Exeter. God, is everyone trying to catch me out tonight? Everyone's giving me puzzles and things to solve the questions. Yay, music time. Oh, I really should play that song. I really enjoyed singing the Arthur song this week, didn't I? Oh, my goodness. Can you see that? I only have to come behind me. All right, so everyone else can see you swinging this massive sword around. Yeah.
Not swinging it.
Well, I hope not. Doesn't matter how sharp it is. It's blinking heavy, isn't it? That's a proper sword, that is. Right. Independent Tropical Mercury. Very good, very good. I was discussing that with Richard yesterday. Does the name Merthyr come from Mercha, which is Mercury? Not Enki. This one's things... Wow. Okay, watch your language, please, Tony. All right, Sumerian counting stuff. Yeah, we can do something on that. Yeah, Brad, be good. If you can't be good, don't get caught. Yeah. The geopolymerase started a very long time ago. Yeah, thank you, Taliesin. Don't you think earthly areas would be referred to in celestial terms like sailors use at sea? Well, that's exactly what happens on the South Wales star map. This is the work Steve Willett's been doing. It's fantastic. So if you walk around like halfway up a hill near Blackwood, there's a place called Left Shoulder Farm. And we're like, man, why would you call anything like it's even white left shoulder or something like that? Ridiculous name. But until you see, like Steve's done, he's plotted out all the farms in that area, and you can see the body of Tiamat, the ancient Babylonian god or goddess, going right back to the ancient story. So the names do map out the places. Not the people, though, which is a good point. We just had a good chat about that. And that makes sense, because if you're doing, say you were marking out your life story, you would do it by places, because you're moving around all the time. Does this make sense? So I could say I was born in Aberdeen, then lived in London, or Derbyshire first, then lived in wherever I lived next, here, I think Pontypridd, London, Middle East. So you could draw the journey, because I'm not in one place. You can't put me on the map, because I keep moving around. Anyway, it gets very interesting. We will be doing more Babylonian star maps and stuff. I think that's the end of it. I've caught up. I might have missed a few. I do hope it is a huge sword, isn't it? Yeah, the dinosaurs aren't real in museums, but models. Yeah. Anyway, here we go. Right. Okay. I'm going to call it a day there now. I will leave the chat on for another 10 minutes or so. Thank you. Massive viewing tonight. The September the 11th. Always a fun day to think about things. Let's not even go there. And don't forget, get your copy of the Light newspaper, and you can see the article, what I wrote. And they won't do a regular column now, so I'm going to keep thinking of another equally good thing and write it up properly. Which I'm sure will be no problem. We've got so much information here, haven't we? And if you have joined for the first time, I hope to see you again. You're very welcome. And for all those wonderful people who come week after week, and we have such a good time on a Sunday evening, I can't imagine life without it anymore. Right, Arnie, you're going to come in very gently, turn the camera off. Oh, yeah, play that. Go on, just play that well song.
Smite it with the sword.
Oh, well, as long as you'll smite me on the way through.
Oh, okay.
Do play guitar. Thank you, Akamose. I will... Where's the Arthur music gone now? I was playing it all week. I have been practicing, actually. I'll do a jig instead. The deception is huge, unfortunately. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Holistic Media. Good night to all. A little bit of a Welsh... was it Tom Jones, isn't it?
Different song.
Oh. See how good my musical ear is. But I have written some good songs, though. If you're a musician and you want to do something with them, please do. Right, North Star. Oh, lots of requests for my guitar. Oh, I feel great now. Thank you for that. These is clearly people who've never heard me play, but I'll take it anyway. Right, very carefully, Arn. Where are you doing the wooden sword? One of those wonderful swords that Alan made.
Nope, I'm using the real sword.
You poke me with that sword, man.
I won't poke you, okay? I'm skilled.
You're skilled. He's skilled with double-handed war swords. It's a nasty thing, this is. There's a long story behind it as well. I'm... Gee whiz, flick your neck. To say I'm nervous now.
I'm good.
I know you're very good with swords and things like that, but I mean, you only get one chance to get it wrong, don't you?
Ready?
I suppose I've got two eyes. Yeah, go on. I'll just use the other eye if you knock one out. Go on, then. All right, North Star, everyone. How do you say peace with a flicking double-handed sword? Anyway, North Star. You missed it. Try it again. Right, North Star.
Are you not doing it? I didn't think you were going yet.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you're just practicing. You just had a couple of practice sweeps. Gee whiz.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. The sooner the better. Yeah, till the next day. North Star. And Heather, go on. Off you go. No, the camera's gone over. That's it. It's definitely the end of the show. Hang on, did that work? Yay, very good. Right, good night, everybody. I'll turn the thing off in a few minutes. Have a chance to say goodnight to each other. North Star. Peace to everyone and love. Cariada Hedwig.
Marohid, a Marohid. I hear the voices singing. Speed your journey, boys, boys, Bach.